So here we go, guys. So let me just share that. So these are the expressions, guys, that I was talking about. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different expressions. So the first one is first name, then we've got surname, date of birth, nationality, personal identity. I'm sorry, it's 7. Personal identity, number, or expiry date. So when you see all these words, what comes to your mind, guys? What
My
and what?
ID.
There we go. That's what comes to your minds, right? That ID documents. And if you think about that, guys, um, I mean, this is the kind of thing that we have never. I mean, perhaps we never pay attention to. If we say like uh, identification document, and then we talk about our identity and how we actually define that word. You know, our identity depends on what. Hmm? So these are things that have somehow changed throughout the years, you see. And perhaps, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, people would identify themselves basically depending on the place of birth, right? Uh, that would be one of the most, let's say, important things. But what about identity these days, guys? What other elements would you think of that are related to our identity and are somehow relevant these days? What would you say about that, guys?
The types of blood, the RH,
Oh, blood type.
and
Well, yeah. Well, but is that something that
English.
defines your identity? Like, for instance, I'm A plus. Does it define who I am? Like I'm a very outgoing person because I'm at A plus, plus as in positive. So I'm super outgoing. I like to have a lot of friends. I don't know if our blood type defines our identity. I don't know. I got no idea. This is a serious answer, but I don't know. We're talking about identity, not the ID document. But no. I think you guys are not getting my question. The point here is not what other kinds of information we can put on a ID, but what other elements can define your identity.
My
Elements,
likes and dislikes.
for example. That's what I
Uh,
meant.
for example, the genre I am identifying to.
And that's quite a let's say that's quite relevant these days, you see, because once this is exactly my point, you see, this is exactly where I want to get. Perhaps 30 years ago, I don't know, 50 years ago, so your place of birth um, would pretty much define most of your identity, right? So it's like I'm caleño, you see, so that's what would tell who I am. But these days is super different because as we have access to more information, and that's, what I think you've heard about that expression, what implies to be a citizen of the world, you see. So we are pretty much on that line. We are citizens of the world, which means that we are not defined by the place where we are born anymore, actually. But there are some other things, as Diego mentions, that can be even more important, you see. So your likes and dislikes, for instance. And you know that people take this very seriously. So for instance, all those people, that there are some communities which are very attached to that. If we think, for instance, about the people who like K-pop, for instance, right? I mean, they are very attached to that, and that's part of their identity at the end of the day. That's important. It's not just like a kind of music they like. It's more than that. And even more what Diego says, which is everything related with genre, right? This is a very complex conversation we are having these days. So that's essentially the introduction I wanted to have. So as you can see, guys, we are going to be talking about this today. We're going to be talking about identity. That's exactly what I'd like to do today. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to focus on that. And as I said, by the end, I'll give you some instructions and insights on a presentation that you guys will make using a couple of formats that I believe you guys are going to find very interesting. Okay, so that's it, guys. It's all about identity. So now that you guys know that we're gonna be talking about that, I'm going to share a PDF file with you via WhatsApp. I just did it. So what I'd like you guys to do, please, is just to download a PDF. You have it there on your devices, and then we're gonna be talking about that. Okay, so as you guys download this PDF, I'm going to make a question, like a couple questions more. Yes. So the first question is super, I mean, it's not very obvious. I mean, it might be, but you'll see that this is important as well. We have ID cards, right? And are the ID cards we've got are cédulas, but there are some countries in which they don't have that, for instance. So for instance, if you go to the UK, people don't have what we call cédulas, you see. And the police cannot ask people to show them, I mean, cannot force people to show their ID cards, for instance, which they don't have, by the way, but they don't ask them to show them some sort of document, you say, which is completely different in Colombia. So that has to do also with the regulations that we have. Our ID cards also have photographies, right? Which is also something interesting to mention, because the question is it a good reflection of what you look like? I mean, the photographs we have on our IDs, for instance, mine, it's a photograph of me when I was 18, of course. And of course, in my opinion, that's somehow useless today, you see? So I don't know, someday you'll feel like that. And the reasons why we have to have ID cards, for instance, let's think about that as well. Why do we have to necessarily have ID cards, right? And how that becomes even a business in the black market for some people. So this is something, as you can see, which can be very serious. So guys, I think you already have the document that this PDF file that I share with you. I think you already have it on your devices, right? Right, guys?
Yes, teacher.
Yes,
There you
sir.
go. So as you'll see, you will find a series of aspects or categories, and we're gonna work on the exercise A, which is called how do you identify yourself? And I believe this is very, very interesting to see, because the answers here and pretty much the whole scenario for each one of us might be quite different. So let me just share my screen so you can see also what I've got. So this is where we are, guys, right? So we've got all these different categories, and the point here is we're gonna start by having a very individual reflection on this. And as you see here is just to think about how we could define ourselves in terms of these categories. So if, and you don't have to say this to anyone, but it's like just for yourself. So my age, well, I consider I'm a young person, I'm middle-aged, or I'm old, you see? You can think about that. My gender, what's my gender? You see? My nationality as well. Then my sexuality. And as you see, these two aspects refer to do two different things. But once again, some years ago, we wouldn't ask that, you see? It's like you've got a gender that you are assigned when you are born, and that's the only thing that we care about, right? But these days is different. We know that discussion is way more complex. My hometown, what I do, for instance, my job and studies, my region, my continent, my hobbies, the football club that I support. I mean, that might sound like, I mean, we as Colombians know that this is a very serious thing for some. You see, there are some people who, really define themselves based on that. The music I listen to, as I said, this is also something that can become really important. The people I spend time with, my family, my role in my family, the clothes I wear, and my beliefs, political, moral, or religious. Okay, so what I'd like you guys to do is just to go category by category very slowly, and I'm pretty much like answer that question to yourselves. So it's like you don't have to tell anybody. It's just for you. Once you have answered each one of these questions for yourself, just to see if these categories are relevant enough or if they perhaps don't define your identity. Once you have done that, what I'd like you guys to do is to choose the three most important for you. So the three most important for you. I would, for instance, in my case, I would say that the most important are my beliefs, my role in my family, and what I do. That's in my opinion. So you will choose the three that you believe are the most important, and then we are going to go to the breakout rooms. But this time I will shuffle the order, so you will be working with other people different from the ones you normally work with. And I think we're gonna do it in 2 rounds less, so you guys share with 2 different groups, and you guys are going to tell the others why those 3 categories are important for you. Is that clear, guys?
Yes, teacher.
There you go. So you guys, I'd like you to take around 3 minutes for doing that, for asking the questions to yourselves and then choosing the 3 categories you guys believe are the most important. So after those 3 minutes, we're gonna go to the breakout rooms and you guys will be exchanging your ideas on that. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. Let me just stop the recording right now. So guys, by now I believe you have chosen the 3 categories that you believe are important for you. So what we're gonna do is very simple. We're gonna go to the breakout rooms, as I said, at least once. And what I'd like you guys to do is explain to your partners why those 3 categories are important for you. We're gonna take around 5 to 7 minutes more or less, so for you guys to have the chance to talk about that with your partners. And then we're gonna be back here to continue talking about this topic. So let's go, guys. We're gonna make groups of, let me see, groups of 3 to 4, 2 to 3, groups of 2 to 3 people. And I will assign you automatically there. So you will pretty much work with anybody who, shows up there. So guys, we've got 5 minutes and then we'll be back here. Have you got any question before we do this? You might say yes or no, if you will.
No, teacher.
Okay. Okay, guys, welcome back. So I really like this discussion, actually. So I would like to somehow illustrate my answers to that one. And in case anybody wants to also answer, I mean, to do pretty much the exercise we did in the group spot here, that would be good. So as I said, the first one, in my opinion, which I believe is the most important category for, in my case, is what I believe, I mean, my beliefs. And it has not to do only with religion, but also with moral. So it's like all these things that I consider right, all the things that I consider important. So it's a mix between my religion and also all the principles and all this different values that I've got that I believe somehow guide what I do pretty much every day. So that's my guidance, I would say. So that would be the top number 1, which defines who I am. The second one has to do with my role in my family. So that's also something that has had a very important impact on defining my personality and my identity as a son and also as an older brother. So that's also very, very important. And the last one I would put there has to do with what I do, you see, and that has to do with both my job and what I have studied before. That's also something that defines a lot who I am, since, well, I somehow see the world from that specific perspective. The rest of the things are somehow important, but I believe they don't necessarily define my identity that much. So those are the 3 that I have that I have chosen myself. So I'd like to know if there's anyone who perhaps would like also to share their categories and their answers to this exercise. Is there anyone who perhaps might want to do that, guys? No? You don't feel very confident sharing that? It's not a big deal though. Okay, okay, that's good.
I can share.
Okay, Felipe, thank you very much.
Well, basically, I agree with you in some of them because, well, I choose my beliefs because, well, I think that is something important that, well, that they know what I think about something political, religious, well, anyways, that kind of things. On the other hand, I choose what I do because what is
Mhm.
important, what I'm doing right now, my studies, what I have done so far. And finally, well, I also choose the music I listen to
Mhm.
because, well, the music is somehow important. We were discussing that in a group that
Yep, yep,
depends
yep.
on the music. That could be, well, something good to know about it.
Yeah, I know, I know. Yeah, it's interesting to see it, right? Like just to think about how music can be an important part of the identity of people. One would say, well, it's just music, but no, there are several cases in which that becomes a very important part. Give me 1 second, guys, please. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much how it goes. Nevertheless, and that's somehow, like the whole discussion here has to do with how all these categories are important, but also how that is something that has changed throughout time. Okay, so that's essentially what I'd like you to do now. So we've got these 3 questions, and I would like to go as a group on each one of them. So, like I've got always 2 options. The first option would be just to ask you, and you guys can freely participate. And the other one would be, choosing you randomly. I always prefer the first, but there are some cases in just like as the previous exercise in which I ask you, and then it's like, it's always the same group of people who help me with that. So I believe this time I will ask you directly. So these are the 3 different questions we've got. The first one goes, which of these things have changed over time? You see how these categories have changed over time and the importance they have changed, they have had. Music is one example, right, of something that has dramatically changed. But I like to listen to you guys about that. So if that's okay with you, I would like to listen to Diana Malojes. I would like to listen to you about the first question. Which of these things have changed over time? What would you say?
Good morning. Well, I'm not sure. I guess the clothes I wear, because, well, years ago, the fashion was totally different as we see now. We see the fashion now. For example, then where people use low waist jeans. Nowadays, people use high waist jeans. There's an example.
That's an example. But apart from thank you very much, Diana. Thank you very much indeed. But apart from that, another thing which we could note here, I'm sorry, is how the clothes also might be connected to beliefs and moral, right? So for instance, you know that when women started to use mini skirts for the first time, that was a whole revolution for some, because it was unbelievable to see how women could use those kinds of clothes. And these days we are also observing something else, and that has to do with, that we would always say that there are some clothes which are exclusive for men or exclusive for women, but now those lines are very thin, let's say, and there are some clothes that can be used for both men and women, or there are some clothes that are like women clothes that some men use, and also the other way around, you see. So that's a very big change we are observing. So I would say, yeah, that category is also something to note. Let's go over the second one. The question says, thank you very much, Diana. The question says, which of these things do you think will change in the future? That's also quite a very good question. And for this one, I'd like to listen to, let me see, Miguel Forero, if that's okay.
Okay. I choose three. One of those things that I choose was um, thank you. The people who I spend time with. Yeah.
So
The people who
I'm
I
sorry,
spend.
I'm sorry. My question is, which of these things do you think will change in the future?
Um, what things change in my future? What I
Yes,
do.
the second question over here. Which of these things do you think will change in the future? Mhm.
Oh, sorry. I think what I do, my job and my
Mhm.
studies. Yeah, really important. Because I think that, for example, in my studies, because can help me um to continue uh, um, in the things that I want to do. For example, the travel that I want to do in the future,
Mhm.
place that I want to, the place that I want to do for my future, and um, and for example, my job, because
Yep.
if I don't want a job, I don't have money, and I can
Okay.
realize.
Mhm.
And I
Okay.
think that what I do, because I make a really bad decisions, but I think that in moments I have
Mhm.
I have like a light that help me
Yep.
and a good ideas and can to and I can have a good consequence, and yeah, I can to
Mhm.
feel better and do things that I want
There we
to do.
go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Miguel. And thank you very much for sharing that. So that specifically, it's a category that can change both individually and in as a society, let's say. So at a individual level, as Miguel said, that's, you know, that these are the kinds of changes that we expect to have in the future. So it's not like we say this is going to change, but we expect that that's going to change. And that also has to do with generations, guys. Like 30 years ago, the people would be happy to have the same job pretty much for their whole lives, and that they would be okay with that. But these days it doesn't work that way. I mean, if we think about having exactly the same job forever, that would be extremely sad for most of us, you see. So people want to have different jobs, different experiences, and study different things. So there's a very high expectation regarding that. So we could say that this is something that's going to change. I mean, will continue changing in the future, but has also changed in the recent years. You know, millennials are the first generation of people who feel that need of having different jobs and different experiences. So that's one thing. But apart from that, it is connected to the kinds of jobs that people can have these days. You know, the entertainment industry um, has changed dramatically, and it has opened also spaces for other people to do other kinds of things. You see, there are people who become very famous just streaming, you know, and that's actually like a word now, you know, streamers. So are these, I mean, which is just incredible, because I don't know, some years ago it would say like a YouTuber, right? Which is a person who makes content for YouTube, but still it's like that has some level of production, right? It's like you create the content and everything. But then same thing happened with other platforms. So you say, well, he or she's a TikToker. So you say like, TikToker. I mean, what does she or he does, right? I mean, what is this person doing? Um, so there you go. And apart from that, same thing happens with streamers, you know, platforms like Twitch, for instance. And there are people who stream hours and hours of them just talking and playing a game, and people watch that and pay for that, and you can make a living out of that. There you go. So this is something which is also changing dramatically. So guys, the last one, I really like this one. I read a piece of news recently that I need to share with you in a moment, and you'll see how, I mean, that piece of news is an example of how all these things have changed. The question goes like this: do you think any of these categories are always fixed? Which ones? That is my question, guys. Do you think any of these are always fixed, and which ones? Who wants to answer this question, guys? I'd like you to please answer that question, as I will look for an article that I really need you to say. Which one do you think, guys, is always fixed? Like things, like there are things that we can change, like more obviously, like a person can change their gender, or a person can change their religion, right? That's something we want to we can do, but perhaps there are some other things which are which are fixed. There are things that we cannot change. So that's my question for you guys. I just found it. Ashley, please.
Okay. For me, I think that is the sexuality, because there are more and more categories in which the people feel identified. Before, we only know about the heterosexual and homosexual people. But now, or currently, there are variety of categories, and it's strange, but the only important thing is love. But I think that it always is change and change and change, and more categories for that people, and that is cool. I don't know.
Well,
For me.
that's, I believe, one of the best examples of one of those categories which is never fixed, right? So I mean, it's not fixed now because it's changing in a lot. That's one example. But and thank you very much for asking. But the point here, guys, is to focus on which ones we think we cannot change that. Lina, please.
Good morning, teacher. So
Hello.
for me, I think that information that we can change, for example, is the region or continent where you born, because it's a change that it's information or it's a fact. For example, you born in some place and you don't change, you couldn't change that thing, even if you go to other place, or even if you live in another place. But if you were born, this will be your region or your continent for all your life. And your other thing that maybe you can change is your family, because even if you are adopted or something like this, you at the beginning, or when you born, yeah, you had a family and you had parents, and you cannot change your family, or where or was your father, for example, or your mother. You can change that, even if there are another family that adopt to you, or where you live. But these are information that, so it's a fact, and you can change that.
I know, and this is, you know what? This is exactly where I wanted you guys to go, because there are some things that, for instance, if you say, you know, a person is born a certain way, and then, for instance, in my case, I changed my religion, so that's something I had the chance to change. There are some other people who make changes in terms of their identity regarding their gender, or their sexuality, And there are some others which are even more obvious, right? Like clothes you wear and stuff like that. And we would normally say that your region or continent, I mean, nationality perhaps somehow, but it's not like you change your nationality. If you are born Colombian and you are given another nationality, it's not like you are not Colombian anymore and then you become a different nationality. Not exactly, right? And that's something that I've also, also think. I mean, if you are born in certain place, you've got that nationality and that's part of your identity, and that's okay, you see. And same thing happens with regions. If for instance, in terms of my identity personally, it's like, as I think I've told you, my father, he's from the north of Valle del Cauca in Cartago, and my family from the side of my mom, they're from Tolima, but I'm Rolo, you see, and I identify myself as Rolo. I'm a fan of Deportes Tolima, but identify myself as that, and that's part of my identity, and there's no problem. But I want to share with you this news. This is just incredible. I mean, I don't know how to see it or feel it, because it's the kind of thing that we say, wow, you see, we are getting there to that kind of discussion. So guys, right here on screen, I'm sharing with you the title of a piece of news that was, I think that's from this year or the last one. I don't remember exactly. Yes, June, this year, June. Look at that, white influencer under fire for identifying as Korean. Blasts woke mob for hypocrisy. If you can be transsexual, you can also be transracial. So what happened with this guy? This person, I will say, is from the UK, and and perhaps I think Valeria knows something about him, but just for those of us who don't know anything about this guy. So it's a guy from the UK. So he was born male, right? And what I've read once is that he started like his whole process to become transsexual, which is one thing to say, okay, I get it, people do that. But apart from that, he's being under lots of surgery because he also wants to become Korean. You see, and that's when I say, wow, can you do that actually? You see, can you become a different nationality? So it's like, and then I was making fun of that with my friends, and I said like, well, I might be then a Turkish girl if I want. I mean, it's possible. It's not just like you want to change your sexual identity, which is something we are more familiar with, but also you can change your race through surgery. So that was like, wow, that's incredible. So my point here is, and the reason why I'm sharing this is that we have got to a point in which most of those categories that we see in the exercise seem to be not fixed. It's like we assume that we can change anything. You see, it's pretty much the direction in which we are going. So if we think about the future, it's like somehow the direction in which we may be going, that everything related to your identity is something you can change. I don't know, but perhaps Valeria knows something. I would like to know, Valeria, if you can tell us a little bit more about the guy so we can perhaps understand the case a little bit better.
Yeah, well, have you ever heard about that girl that gets surgery to become Barbie?
Yep.
He starts something like that. He started like getting surgery to become or to have like similarity to an idol. But then everything go crazy. And he starts saying that he was Korean. He gets surgery on on his nipples. And he said that they were Korean nipples. And that he's going to go to Korea and show Korean people their nipples and ask them if they are Korean nipples. So at first it was like, okay, you want to get surgery, people don't care. But now he like passed that tiny line between crazy and madness, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Wow.
really crazy,
Yeah,
that guy.
that sounds very crazy. But that's the point. You see, it's like, I don't know, 10 years ago, let's say 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would say like this guy is just crazy. That's it. But for instance, think about that. Several years ago, if anybody, wanted to change their sexual identity, let's say, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, people would say, oh, you are crazy. You are a man. You cannot be a woman. You are crazy. How come you're going to get surgery to become a woman if you are a man? That's what they would say. These days, we say, if that's your decision, it's okay. I mean, it's your decision. It's your body. There you go. Nothing to do. But there are things like this that we say, and that's how I feel. We say, that makes no sense. Well, what's going to happen in the future? You say, is this going to be different in the future if they say, oh, you know what, I want to become a little bit Italian or Greek because I'm feeling like I'm actually a Greek person in the body of a Colombian? People would say, okay, you can do that. And by the way, I'm not saying that today there is no restriction regarding changing sex. I mean, we know the kind of society in which we are living, but there is a degree of acceptance. You see, we can talk about that, for instance, in a class in the university, especially in a university like ours, let's be honest, we could not have this kind of discussion, for example. Let's put it like that. I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago, many of you would have perhaps complained about that. Like, oh my God, that class is the worst because the teacher is talking about changing sexes and changing race, and that's just nuts. But we can have the kind of that kind of discussion, you see. So I don't know, this is hard. And same thing what Valeria says here, like, if it's a matter of race or culture, I agree with that. Instead of changing your body, like, you should get closer to the culture. For instance, I'm so in love with Turkish culture, and how I've approached that is learning the language and reading and studying, you see, not through surgery. But anyways, guys, this is quite a complex topic, as you can see here. But it's interesting to see, guys, how this word itself, guys, fixed. Categories are always fixed. Wow, I don't know. I think this is hard to say, because there are things, like, most of things we do are not fixed. And as Ashley was explaining before, in terms of sexuality and gender identity and everything, it's like there are always more and more and more options. And everything goes, as she said, everything goes around the concept of love itself. So we see that gender and sexuality are not things which are totally fixed, because even though, if in my opinion, I believe that there are certain genders or certain sexualities, even if I feel it like that, it's just my opinion, and lots of people see that in a completely different way. So that's something we must accept. But we normally would say, well, you know, your region, your continent, your nationality, that's something you cannot change. Well, there are some people who believe that that's a possibility. And the point is not if you can actually change your nationality. The point here is how these things are changing and how these things become more and more fluid, let's say. And that's, you know, very complex. Anyways, guys, so now I'd like you to focus on something else, which is part of what identity is. If you think about that, guys, as you were thinking about all these different categories and the categories that you guys consider important for you, when you say I am this or I am that, you are at the same time saying somehow I'm not this, I'm not that. You see, so if I identify myself as a man, heterosexual man, at the same time I'm saying I'm not a woman, I'm not transsexual, I'm not homosexual, you see? So when you define yourself in a certain way, you are also saying that you are not something else. And that's normal. I mean, that's exactly how it works. If I don't know, if I'm Muslim, that means that I'm not Christian, that I'm not Jewish, that I'm not atheist, you see? That's exactly how it works. But as you can see here, when we define ourselves, that means that we are also referring to the others. So there are some, I mean, there are other people who have got a different identity. So look at this. What do you understand by the terms them and us? And how do these pronouns usually refer to? What does it mean to put people in boxes? Does it have a literal meaning or something else? And then we are going to match the groups of people in A with their opposites in B. So this exercise is going to help us a little bit understand that part. So it's like at the first stage, guys, when we talk about identity, we're talking about all those things that are important for us and how we define ourselves. But now we're going to see how defining ourselves also separate us from others, because that means that when you define yourself, you're also saying that there are other people who are different, let's say. So that's essentially what we're gonna go over. So we're gonna answer these questions and do this little exercise in which you guys have to match the groups of people in A with their opposites in B. We're gonna just do that. It's gonna take a little bit less than 10 minutes. And then we're gonna be back here to watch a video just to reflect on these questions, okay? This time you guys will be able to choose your groups. So we're gonna go to the breakout rooms, but this time you can choose who you wanna work with. Okay, guys, that's it. So we're gonna have around a little bit less than 10 minutes. I'll let you know when we have just 2 minutes more. So we come back here. Have you got any questions, guys? No?
Nope.
No questions? So again, oh shoot, I was not recording. So yeah, immigrants and those those that have always been here, that would be the opposite. The people from the countryside, which is people from who don't live in the big cities, right? People from the countryside, what would be the opposite?
Those that have never seen a cow.
A cow, yes, those who have never seen a cow, that would be the opposite, right? Then we have the religious. The religious, what is the suggested expression here? Let me just see, because I don't have idea. The self-confident, okay. They put the religious with the self-confident as the opposite. I don't know. That's an option, I believe. Those we share something with, and
Those we don't share anything with.
there you go. It is as simple as that. So these are just the opposites and everything, but this is the point, guys. As you can see, whenever we talk about identity, we talk both about those things or those categories we are and everything we are and how there are contrasts. So now that we have this context, guys, I'd like you to watch the whole video again. I'm gonna play the whole video. And I would like you to think about these 3 different questions as we progress on the video. So we're gonna watch it and we're gonna answer these questions by the end, but I'd like you just to keep these questions in mind. First, which other groups are formed? So try to make a list of the ones you can remember. So you can make the list as you watch the video, or you can do it at the end, but let's see which other groups are formed. What is interesting about each of these groups? That's also a question. And which are the largest groups and the smallest? Okay, that's something we like to see. So let's watch the whole video again. Now that you have context, as I said, this is a TV campaign from Denmark. So let's pay attention, guys.
It's easy to put people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag. Nogle af dem kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn? Hvem er bonusforældre?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual. And we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life. And we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark. All that we share.
Wow, guys, that was just moving. That was wow. That was quite something. I would say. Wow, and that was really hard to see. I would say. You see, as we were talking about this whole topic on identity and those things that we believe are fixed and the things that we somehow assume that define who we are, and then when we face this kind of questions, we see that those barriers are completely eliminated at the end of the day, you see, and it has to do more with those things we believe in, but not in terms of religion or something like that, but in terms of true and honest values, you see. Wow, that was just so powerful. So I don't know, guys, I like to listen to your impressions, your ideas on this video that we just watched. Is there anybody who wants to perhaps share something? I mean, that was very, very moving and powerful. So I think you necessarily need to say something. I can't believe that you don't feel anything about it. So anybody, guys, wants to say something about that, perhaps? That was, give me a second. There's someone raising their hand. Maria Alejandra, please.
Yeah, teacher, I really like it because like at the beginning there were like in boxes, but then with the questions they realized that a lot of people have a lot of common in different things, and that like is what empower people to certain things, or like to make like significant relationships with people. And also a question that I really like was like who loves Denmark or something like that.
Yeah.
And everyone like go to a center, or everyone like respond yes. And I think that is really like wholesome, because I think like Colombians we wouldn't do it, because I think a lot of people is ungrateful about why
were born here, but yeah, I really like the video.
That's the point. That's exactly the point. And the thing is that, thank you very much for that, Maria Alejandra. And the thing is that, you know, when we talk about identity, and that was the case of the very first exercise, we say like, these are the three things I believe are the most important. And sometimes we get to a point in which we say, this completely defines who I am. And you would feel that you would share something only with those who are also there. That's something that happens a lot with religion, you see? And as I said, I am a person who's got a religion, but sometimes we tend to think that only whatever is inside that community is what you are, you see? So it's like you wouldn't relate to someone who's got a different religion, for instance. That's not exactly how it goes. And as you can see, you can have lots of things you can share with others. And that's something that defines your identity. And that could be one of the good things of how all these aspects are changing and they have become so fluid. I believe that's something actually good about that. So guys, let me say, we need to cover another exercise really quick as we need to prepare for an activity for the coming days. So we are going to jump directly to the task 3 in your worksheets, because I need to move a little bit faster so we can cover other things. So let me just share my screen with you again. So guys, this is exactly where we are. So what I'd like you guys to do really quick, I'd like you individually to do this exercise in which you are going to look at these 6 phrases that we use to talk about probability, and I'd like you to put them in order from 1, which means very probable, to 6, which means not probable, okay? So it's just a ranking really quick. We're gonna take 3 minutes to do this, since these expressions are going to be key for the next exercises, but we need to cover just really quick so we introduce what's gonna be the exercise we're gonna be working on this week, which is, by the way, the first grade of the 2nd term. Okay, guys, so you guys have 3 minutes for that. That's it. So let's do this. Okay, guys, this is not a big deal, so I think we can answer it really quick. So, guys, what's the expression that would be in the first place, which means something which is very probable to happen?
Maybe.
This is bound to happen.
Yeah, that's the one. This is, wait a minute, this, oh shoot, this is bound to happen. That would be the expression that we would use in case we want to refer to something which is very possible, very likely to happen in the future. So this is bound to happen. Well, which one would be in the second place?
It could happen, but I'm not sure.
There you go. Absolutely. It could happen. It could happen. But I'm not sure. There you go. Number 3, guys.
Maybe.
Maybe. That's the one which is suggested. Number 4.
I doubt very much that.
I don't know. I think there is another one which I would put there.
In reality, it probably won't happen.
Yeah, that's the one I would suggest. In reality, it would no. That's not even a pronoun. It probably won't happen. Number 5.
I doubt very much that.
I doubt. See, I doubt. Shoot, wait a minute. I doubt very much that, and then you could continue there. And the last one, of course, this would never happen, right? That's quite obvious. This would, oh shoot, this would never, oh my God, what's wrong with me? This would never happen. There you go, guys. So those are the expressions. So this is exactly what we're gonna do, guys. That should be happening on Wednesday. We're gonna do an activity. So you've got basically 2 parts of homework. The first one, guys, I would like you to go over the exercise 2, which is just a way to practice these phrases. So I would like you guys to compose a super small text. It would be almost like half a paragraph or so, in which you guys are going to do something like this. It's just to discuss your identity and how that might change in the future. Like, I would never change my gender, but maybe I would like to move to another country and possibly change nationality eventually. You see, something like that. I would like you to compose a very, very simple text just like that, just to try to play a little bit with these phrases. That is the very first part of a homework. But the other part, the one I believe is the most important, let me just copy paste a little text. Oh my God, I just deleted that. So give me a second. The next part of a homework is just to answer this question. I will put it on the chat box. What is a Takahashi presentation? That is a question you must answer. Point is here, guys, that this week we're gonna be working on that. So on Wednesday, in groups, you guys will be delivering a Takahashi presentation. And you say, but what's a Takahashi presentation? Well, that's a homework for tomorrow, okay? So tomorrow you guys have to come up with that answer. We are going to basically talk about that. So we as a group understand what a Takahashi presentation is, okay? So step number 1, just answer that, this exercise number 2, in which you are going to describe your, possible changes in the future in terms of identity using these phrases. And the last part is just to answer this question. What is a Takahashi presentation? So you guys are going to tell me tomorrow what a Takahashi presentation is, which is something we're gonna do on Wednesday. Okay, that is it. So just exercise number 2 over here and answer the question, what is a Takahashi presentation? Is that clear, guys?
Yes, teacher.
There you go. Guys, have you got any question, any comment before we leave?
No.
There you go. So guys,
No.
no, that's great. That's good. So we're gonna just call the attendance right away, and then we're good to go. If you guys need to have some breakfast or something, that's going to be one possibility you've got there, or you can just have some refreshment before your next class, if that is also the case. So let me do this. I'm going to stop the recording in this moment. By the way, I've been uploading all the recordings to the YouTube channel in case you need them. It's not like I want to have views, but it's just in case you need to watch them for any reason, they're there. So let's stop the